My name is Kyle Harrison, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber.
Sidearm win, scores!
Now it's one. Padel scores! Hands off for Ravel, switches hands and scores!
Carly Omo showing off those shifty skills.
Right off the bat, there's Lyle Thompson.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam, and together we're bringing you interviews from all your favorite players and coaches, as well as news and analysis from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. Welcome to another episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk. I'm Hutton Jackson, he's Adam, and today we are breaking down the PLL Championship Series coming up. We are going to talk betting, as well as preview these matchups. And also, preview the championship series overall as well. I know me and you both have our picks for who we think will be in the finals in the championship. But first off, Adam, the day is here. It is Saturday. The PLL Championship Series is here. How excited are you?
I'm so excited, man. It's going to be an absolute blast. These teams are stoked, adding in a new expansion franchise to make it a little more exciting. We have a lot of storylines to talk about. I'm really excited to get things going.
Yeah, no, let's, start off breaking down some of these rosters. We'll start with the Archers, who go in with a lot of hype. They got Grant Ament, number 1 pick in the PLL draft. Another defense that was really solid last year, adds another key piece in Eli Gobrecht. I think their face-off duo, too, is going to surprise some people. I know Stephen Kelly didn't have the best year last year, but he started to do a little bit better towards the end of the season. Brendan Fowler is like a change of pace guy for that face-off duo. So, yeah, I think they look stacked right now. Again, you got that attack that has Grant Ament, Josh Courier, Marcus Holman, and Will Manny right now. I know they've been running Josh out of the midfield a little bit too. And then the defense, you got Matt McMahon, Eli Gobrecht, Curtis Corley, Scott Ratliff at LSM, as well as Mike Simon. And then they added Jack Rapine as well, since Evan Connell tested positive for COVID-19. So that's kind of what they're working with. And then, the midfield, I think, Adam Christian Mazzone was a big piece. He had, 40-plus goals and 40-plus ground balls last season, which no one else was able to do in the MLL. And then they got some solid defensive midfielders in Dominique Alexander and Mark McNeil. It'll be interesting to see, how Ryan Ambler steps up this season because, he played really well and flew under the radar last year. But they do lose Danny Ipe. But then again, you got Tom Schreiber at the midfield, arguably the best player in lacrosse. So I really like this Archer squad. What do you see from them that, gives you excitement?
Yeah, they're really strong. I mean, you mentioned Eli Gobrecht already. It'll be really fun to see him play in this fast-paced style. Really excited to see Josh Courier, another new guy on this squad who has gone under the radar at the moment. D3 guy out of Virginia Wesleyan, fantastic indoor player in the box game. I think, especially, we may talk about this later from a fantasy standpoint, I think he may be a great late addition for squads on this attack. So great option there. Really strong core coming back, especially at the goalie position. Look for them to go with their goalie duo of Drew Adams and Adam Gittleman again. Excited to see this squad hit the field because I don't think last season ended the way they wanted to, obviously. So excited to see them get back out there.
No, definitely, they came out, pretty well against that Redwoods squad. And then once, Tom Schreiber got injured, the wheels kind of fell off a little bit, that playoff matchup. I think they're hungry, to get back there. We talked to Josh Courier a little bit. They're excited. They're really just focusing on themselves. They don't really worry about anybody else. They think they have the talent that they can beat anybody. So, yeah, we're certainly excited to see them. And then moving on to the Atlas, they're another team that, made some roster adjustments. They, had a huge disappointment last year. I think given the talent that they had last season, they should have went farther. I don't know if it's too many cooks in the kitchen. They have a new coach in Ben Rubuer, though, he's either coached or worked with a lot of these players. We spoke to him. He's excited. It's his first head coaching stint at the pro level. And, they add some pieces in the offseason. I think somebody flying under the radar right now is Craig Chick. He was a phenomenal poll last year for the Dallas Rattlers. He can play all over the field. You can put him at close. They're going to run him at LSM. He's a ground ball machine. I really like the addition of him. Brian Costabile, second overall pick in the PLL draft, can go both ways. And from what we've heard, he's running a lot of D-midi shifts. So expect him, to be a threat in transition, but also be able to get back into the hole when they need him to. And then, Romar Dennis is going to be another interesting one. Not the best shooting percentage last season. Also, was really, didn't get much playing time from here or there with the Chrome. I think he's going to have a larger role. This midfield's crowded, though. They're going to be competing for spots. Obviously got Paul Rabel there. John Crowley, they worked a lot from the box and isolated him from behind as well last season. I think we'll see a little bit less than that because I know one of your favorite players that you're looking forward to watch is Rob Pennell. So how important do you think Rob Pennell's impact from this attack standpoint is going to be, given that they added some pieces at the midfield and, hopefully this defense, even though it is missing Tucker Durkin, can still perform at a high level? What do you kind of see from Rob's game that you think is going to make him a perfect fit for this Atlas team?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you add one of the best attackmen in the world to a squad, it only can get better, right? And we talked to Coach Rubio a little while back, and he talked about his excitement to see the opportunities and playing styles to put a guy like Rob Pennell with Ryan Brown to see what versatility those two can put on the field. And I'm really excited to see them go at it together in addition to guys like Eric Law.
Yeah, Eric Law too, underrated attackman, performed at a really high level. Best right in front of the goal last season and around the crease. We can expect more from him, I think, this year as well. I think my biggest weakness for them right now is, can some of these middies go both ways? Right now you have Jake Richard, solid short stick defensive midi. They did lose Noah Richard at LSM, but they replaced him with Craig Chick, and they got Kyle Hartzell there. But really, we know Brian Costabile can run some D-midi shifts, if needed, and go both ways. We got to see it a little bit more from John Crowley and Joel Tinney. And, they say Romar Dennis could eventually go both ways too. I just, I think they're asking a lot of them right now. And then this defense, losing Tucker Durkin is huge. He tested positive for COVID-19. He'll be eligible to return for the playoffs potentially. But I don't know if I'm too confident in a group that's Austin Pafani, Cade Van Raphorst, and Colin Robinson. The defense last year wasn't that solid, and Tucker Durkin was playing last year. And without him, the leader of the defense, I think this group might struggle a little bit, to be honest. They're going to really rely on Trevor Baptiste to play make it, take it. They're going to have to put up a lot of points. And Baptiste is, the best face-off in the league, so he is the one guy to do it. But he's also, pretty much their only starting face-off guy. We know that Jeremy Thompson can also take face-offs, and he's going to also help at the defensive midfield. And he can push it too if needed. We see how he does it with the rush, the Saskatchewan rush. But I don't know. This group, it doesn't excite me too much. I still think they might have some of the same woes as last year, but we'll have to see. And then moving on to the Chaos, they're another roster that got a little bit of an overhaul in terms of they lose Brody Merrill at the defensive end, but they're getting Dane Smith to play the whole season this year. They're getting Dane Smith to play the entire season this year. You have Sergio Salcido, who they traded for. Tyson Belt, I think, is another huge piece that's going to do wonders for their transition offense and defense. Short stick defensive midi, but he can also score if needed. He's going to be he's going to really fit in well in place of Kyle McClancy, who they lost in the expansion draft. So I think you can see him do a lot of good under the radar for them. I think, he's going to really push this transition offense that we know they want to play fast. They want to score goals off the fast break. I think he's going to help them do it. For me, though, again, what gives me pause is their defense. They lose Johnny Surdick to military commitments. So right now they have Jack Rowlett, Jared Newman, and Jason Noble. And then at LSM, they have Matt Reese and Troy Ray. So they're only having 5 pulls. Obviously, we'll have you talk about how loaded their attack is, but that concerns me a little bit. Again, I think teams that didn't prioritize the defense are going to struggle this year. It's a short season. You're going to be playing a lot of games back-to-back. And if you don't have fresh legs on the defense, these games could get out of hand fast. But what do you think from this attack unit that kind of maybe, the defense can give up 10-plus goals a game and they could still win? So who are some guys on this attack that you think are really going to, blow it up this year?
Yeah, you have the likely culprits from last season in Josh Byrne and Connor Fields, who's one of the best players in the league. You add guys like Austin Stotts and Curtis Dixon. I think Stotts is going to blow up this year. I think he's going to be one of the highest scoring guys in the league this year, potentially. So this offense is highly potent, and I think they're going to look to outscore teams by large margins. And, don't forget, too, they added one of the best goalies in the world in Dylan Ward to already having last year's goalie of the year in Blaze Reardon.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see if they, those two guys split time. I love the pick of Dylan Ward, but, again, you can only start one. So, and it worries me that they lost a guy like Brody Merrill, the leader of the defense, and they didn't really, I don't think replace him. Again, you got Jared Newman, Defensive Player of the Year last year, so can't count them out. But they kind of struggled on defense down the stretch, and I don't know if those defensive woes are necessarily going to go away. Their short stick defensive minis, though, are very solid. You got Pat Resch. I already mentioned Tyson Bell. Mark Lassini, probably one of the best to do it. So, they are going to be able to still defend well from the midfield. I don't think it's going to be transition defense that's going to hurt them so much, but their 6-on-6 kind of gives me a little bit of pause. If you can get the right matchups, you might be able to put a lot up against this team, but we'll see. Again, new season, and again, Jason Noble, who I mentioned, is stepping in since Deemer Class is now inactive due to injury, and I think that's huge for them. No disservice to Deemer Class. I think his presence on the midfield will certainly be felt, the lack of, but adding Jason Noble, I think, was something they should have done right off the bat anyway. And then you got Dan Coates as well, who's going to be replacing Johnny Surdick's spot. So I think, again, it's really going to come down to transition. If teams figure them out on transition, they're going to have a tough time. If they can put up a lot of points, and get back in the hole, then I think they'll have some success. And, again, you got Blaze Reardon and Dylan Ward are going to be stopping a lot of shots this year. But, again, defense kind of gives me a little bit of pause. And then moving on to the Chrome, the new look Chrome, they probably have had the most overhaul this season. They add a lot of big pieces. On defense, you got Jake Pulver, James Barclay, Jesse Bernhardt, and Reese Eddy. Mike Manley is the only defender returning from that defense last year. And then at pole, we got Eli Salama at LSM. I think you'll see Reese Eddy run some LSM as well. They lose Joel White, which is huge. Lose his presence, not only, his performance, but also his presence as a leader. But I think Jesse Bernhardt can really step in. I mean, that's why they picked him second overall in the entry draft and passed on a guy like Pennell, because I think they prioritized the defense this year. And I think John Galloway is going to have a bounce back season, and Donnie Moss, I think people don't really know. He doesn't get enough credit because he can run pole if they need him too. He's a solid short stick defensive mini. I mean, a lot of these guys are really, this is kind of like the new Radlers, that Coach Sudan had in years prior. I think he's got some unfinished business with this group. But from the midfield and the attack side, anybody that stick out to you that people might be sleeping on right now?
Yeah, a new guy coming in from that was drafted not by this team, but by the aforementioned Chaos is Matt Gaudette. He probably would have finished his career as Yale's highest leading scorer in their history if it wasn't for this canceled season. So I'm really excited to see what he can do getting paired with guys like Jordan Wolf and Justin Gutterding. Brendan Kavanaugh's another guy I'm really excited to see. So, but it's an interesting squad. I'm excited to see if they can bounce back. And guys, as you mentioned, like Jake Pulver, Eli Salama coming over from the MLL are going to make big dividends for this Chrome squad going into the season.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to be a juggernaut. I really do. You got Justin Turry too, added from Duke, adding at the midfield. He didn't play at all last season. I think, he could surprise some people. Jesse King as well, making his field debut after a few years. He's obviously had a huge presence on the Calgary Roughnecks last season, winning that championship. He was on the Swarm prior to that. Phenomenal career at Ohio State. He's another guy that, they're probably going to bring in out of the box. I think the starters are probably going to be Wolf, Gutterding, and Gaudette. And then I think you'll see Kavanaugh and King run from the box and maybe give those guys some breaks here and there. But, this Chrome team, don't sleep on them. Chrome Back 2020 is a real thing. And I would be shocked if they finish where they did last year. during this series. So, and then another guy we didn't even mention, and we just interviewed, Hunter Forbes, is going to be a perfect change of pace for them compared to Connor Farrell. Connor Farrell's the bruiser. He's going to, get those ground balls. And then Hunter Forbes, though, is going to beat you right off the draw and maybe, cause some more fast break opportunities. So they got a nice 1-2 punch there at the face-off X. And then moving on to the Redwoods. A lot of people went into this season really hyping up the Redwoods. I think the hype is real. I mean, you add Miles Jones, even though you swap Sergio Salcido, I think it's still huge. He's going to get a lot of assists. Him and Joe Walters, I think, is the two-man game I'm looking forward to watching the most. What do you think, though, from this defense? That now that they don't have Matt Landis, they replace him with Finn Sullivan. Do you think they're going to still have the same chemistry as last year? Do you think they're going to perform at the same level?
Yeah, if you were going to replace a guy like that with someone, I'd say Finn Sullivan is the perfect replacement, right? He had a fantastic season last year in the MLL, and I think he's going to slide in perfectly for what that Redwoods defense is doing. I can't see a reason why they wouldn't kind of continue on with the success they had last year.
And the one thing that is missing, Jules Henningberg, who arguably could have been their MVP last year, had COVID in June, had some complications, and he's at risk for cardiac arrest, so he is not playing in this series. Clark Peterson's going to have to step it up. Clark Peterson, people forget, he actually had a good couple first games. Then they got Ryder Garnsey, and he kind of got pushed out of the roster because they also had Wes Berg, who they traded for. Wes Berg's now on the Water Dogs. Jules obviously isn't playing, so this is Clark's show. I saw on Twitter someone was asking who do you pull at the midfield, Perkovic or Miles Jones, and people were saying pull them both and give Peterson a shorty. I hope Peterson saw that, because if I were him, I'd be a little pissed off about that comment. I think Peterson is a phenomenal attackman. I think he's right up there with Ryder Garnsey, and I think people are forgetting what he did not only at Cornell but also with the Thunderbirds this year. So I expect him to have a big season. Again, missing Jules is huge. You really don't replace a guy like that. But I do think that this attack will still perform at a high level and give them a great shot at making it to the championship. Now we go to the Water Dogs, the expansion franchise. Adam, I know you love this team. Talk to me a little bit about this team and why you love them so much.
Yeah, I mentioned in my season preview, this isn't your parents' expansion franchise, right? They're not expected to take a couple years to excel. I mean, they were not only able to pick some of the top college talent, they were able to pull some of the best players from the MLL when they came over from in the entry draft, in a guy in Rylan Reese and Zach Currier. If I were to pick two guys from that expansion draft, I honestly think those were my two I was most excited for this squad to pull over. Arguably the best two-way midfielder in the world in Zach Currier, and a guy like Rylan Reese at LSM, who I think is going to absolutely blow up. He had 1 million ground balls last year, 15 caused turnovers, and he's not afraid to shoot too. He had 7 goals last year, had a 2-pointer. He's going to pull up from 2. Fantasy guys out there, I think Rylan Reese is the perfect defenseman or LSM to utilize in the fantasy game. I think he's going to be a name that absolutely blows up this year. And I haven't even mentioned the guys they got in the expansion draft, right? So I think this roster is absolutely loaded, and I'm excited to see them play. The only thing is, they haven't played together yet, a single game. And with only 4 games to gel, they're hoping that does happen.
And you mentioned Rylan Reese. He's available in more than 80% of fantasy leagues. So if he's available, I highly suggest picking him up and starting him as well. The thing that excites me too is Jake Withers at the face-off X. You got Drew Simoneau too, who's no slouch as well. I think they're going to be a good face-off duo. And again, the teams that took 2 face-off guys, I think is critical, because, unless you have a Trevor Baptiste or Joe Nardella, or I get Tommy Kelly's up there too. I still think, though, those guys are going to get beaten down, and if you have an injury there, that could really negatively sway the game. So I think having those 2 guys is big. You mentioned the four guys that were on the Whip Snakes last season: Drew Snyder, Connor Kelly, Ben Reeves, and Ryan Drenner had 71 of Whip Snakes points last year. That's a lot of offensive production the Water Dogs are adding. And then you couple that with Zach Currier, Kieran McCardle, Christian Cuccinello, Westberg. I mean, like you said, this offense is loaded. The defense, solid. They're another team, though, that I'm a little bit, worried about. Not hugely, but, you got defensive leader and Brody Merrill there. Not too worried about him. Chris Savio is also a solid pull. Patrick Foley's making his pro debut after playing at Hopkins. And then you got BJ Grill. This unit is solid. I just don't know if they're the best in the league. Brody Merrill is getting up there in age. Again, we mentioned their long poles, Rylan Reese and Noah Richard are really solid too. But yeah, the defense, close defense is something that I don't think they're the strongest in the league. And then goalie too, Charlie Cipriano, they believe he is going to be their starter. They got Matt DeLuca as well in case, Charlie doesn't have a good day. But, that's expecting a lot too out of those two, to step in and be a starter. And, not that Charlie hasn't done it before. And, Matt DeLuca is just coming off a, terrific college season. But defense still, to me, could be their Achilles heel in this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Their social media team has really been hyping Matt DeLuca over training camp. So I'll be interested to see who does end up starting for them. I will say, though, Matt DeLuca fills up the cage really, really well. And he's coming from a place where he saw a ton of shots every game. And that probably bodes well for him if he does see action for the Water Dogs with the high volume of shots in the PLL.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting, who has a short leash in this series since, they do have to, they only have 4 regular season games. You can't really, wait till a full game's over to make a goalie change. You might have to do it, at the half or even a quarter if, something gets out of hand, So I'll be looking to see what these coaches do. Now moving on to the defending champion Whip Snakes. This team lost a lot in the expansion draft, but then added some key pieces this offseason as well. I think they're still very, very solid. Unfortunately, it sounds like Tim Muller has got an injury, so the defense is losing a key piece there. But Brett Schmidt, should fill in pretty seamlessly with that. They still got Bryce Young, Matt Dunn, and then from LSM, Isaac Paparo and Michael Earhart are right there. So this defense, they kept that core intact. That was intentional for sure. Jake Bernhardt, we might see him maybe run a few more offensive shifts. He was predominantly a short stick defensive mid last year. And then you got Jeremy Sieverts as well. But this offense is what is extremely interesting because they had so much overhaul. Matt Rambo is the only returning starting attack. You got Jake Carlson, who, actually did really well in that championship last season. But some key pieces in Brad Smith and Zed Williams, they're going to expect to really step up. Talk to me about those 2 midfielders that they added this offseason and how you think they'll perform.
Yeah, Max Tuttle and TJ Camizio are going to play a huge role for the squad coming into the season. I am so excited to see a guy like TJ Camizio play with this team. He plays mean. I think he's another player that's going to blow up and be all over social media once the Whip Snakes start to play. And, we haven't really mentioned a guy like Brad Smith on the attack line, too. Isaac Berkey, from a fantasy standpoint, talked about Brad's game and the potential for him to be a sleeper. So I'm excited to see him. And as you mentioned, Zed Williams is a fantastic finisher and is going to be a great combo with Matt Rambo on that attack.
Yeah, and you might see Zed, run from the box a little bit. He's definitely going to be all over the field. He's got range. As you said, he can finish in front. If you watch him, on the Swarm, he just got traded now to the Mammoth. But if you watch him on the Swarm, he's just an electric player to watch. We're certainly looking forward to seeing what this new look Whip Snakes does in season 2. All right, so that is our previews of these teams. Now, going off those rosters, Adam, who do you think are the 2 teams that are going to make it to the finals, and who is your PLL 2020 champion?
Yeah, I think my pick's going to be a little bit off the beaten path, but, with the shortened season, anything can happen. I think Tim Sudan makes it back to a championship in his first year with the Chrome. A lot of his players are returners that he's already coached before when he was with the Rattlers. So I'm excited to see the chemistry that he has with his former players and now players. I think that Chrome squad is going to surprise a lot of people. And I'm going with my second team, the surprise too, the Water Dogs. I think that team is absolutely stacked. And even though in my article I said potentially a weakness is their chemistry, that take could be old very quickly depending on how the season goes. And with the talent they have brought in, the depth that they have, I think those two squads are going to have a fun matchup in the championship.
I would love to see that matchup. It'd be a high-scoring affair for sure. I like the Chrome a lot. They were a team that I considered choosing in the finals. I really think, I'd be surprised if they finish anywhere other than the top 3 or 4. And then I really like the Water Dogs team too. Again, I mentioned their defense gives me a little bit of pause. No disrespect to any of those guys on that roster, but, they haven't had that time to kind of build that chemistry compared to some other teams that are returning their defenses. And that's why my top 3 teams kind of right now are the Redwoods, Archers, and Whipsnakes still. And, again, I'm not sleeping on the Chrome at all, but I think, the Whipsnakes, and hopefully Tim Muller's healthy, because I think that could be a key point if he is not. But I really like that Whipsnakes defense. I think the pieces they added this offseason are going to give them just as much production as the pieces they lost. I think their midfield is actually better this year, at least I think their midfield is better this year from a defensive midfield standpoint, because, Tuttle can go both ways. TJ Camizio can go both ways. You already have Bernhardt. And then I think, John Haas gets a lot of I think John Haas doesn't get enough praise too. He's such an unselfish player on that offense. Jay Carlson played really well last year when he was given a chance. Obviously a great career at Maryland, so don't sleep on him. And then, we mentioned Brad Smith and Zed Williams. So I think this team is still stacked. I still like Stagnita as a coach and what he does with this team. And they got Kyle Bernlor, who we didn't even mention, arguably one of the best goalies in the league. So I expect them to get back. And then I like the Archers a lot. Redwoods are up there too for me. Losing Jules is a big miss, I think, for me. So that kind of hurt their chances. Still think they have a great team. But for me, I think this is the Archers championship to lose. They are stacked on offense. Their midfield, they kind of revamped that a little bit this offseason, and their defense is going to be just as good with the addition of Eli Gobrecht. I think this team is going to win. I think Grant Amon's going to do big things. I think he's going to be your rookie of the year. That's my bold pick. But I'm going Archers over Whipsnakes in the final. Again, wouldn't surprise me if that Chrome team surprises some people too. As well as, I'm not sleeping on the Redwoods. But for right now, Archers, Whipsnakes are my picks for the finals, with Archers coming out on top.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic pick. And, I think if it was a full season play, my picks would have been a little bit different potentially. But with this sprint of a season, I think those two rosters in the Chrome and Water Dogs are fit for that sprint.
And it's so true. Like, if you go down 0-2 in your first 2 games, you're going to have a tough time. You're going to have to face one of those really top teams. And that number 1 seed is huge. I was doing like my bracket pool a little bit, and I had 4 teams finish at 3-1, and ended up being, it's going to come down to goal differential and head to head. That's also going to be another thing that's interesting to watch, with these teams. You can have a 4-way tie for that top spot, but only one person is going to get that bye. So another thing to look out for, that bye is going to be crucial, and these teams are going to be fighting for it. So you're not going to see anybody taking a day off in this pool play. But with that, though, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to move on to the sports betting realm, because we have our over-unders, we have our point spread, and we're ready to make some picks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast. Today I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Anchor. We've been using Anchor for the Pro Lacrosse Talk Podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast, and once it's published, they send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. They also connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast today, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today, I also want to talk to you about our affiliate, Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free like Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our personal favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $39.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. If you visit Stitcher.com today and use the code LACROSSE, you can get 1 month of Stitcher Premium for free. So head on over to Stitcher.com, sign up, and get your free trial today.
All right, so let's dive into the sports betting. This is the first time you can officially bet on pro lacrosse in the United States. First off, we're super excited for that. Their partnership with DraftKings, I think, is huge, not only from a betting perspective, but from a content perspective. They're going to have a lot of content on the broadcast. That's what this partnership does for them. It allows DraftKings to be their official sports book and actually produce content on the PLL and prioritize it. So really excited about that. But yeah, we finally have the over-unders for this opening weekend's games, as well as the point spread. Right now, the Redwoods are 1.5 point underdogs. The Chrome are 1.5 point underdogs against the Chaos. And then the Water Dogs are 1.5 point underdogs against the Atlas. So Adam, let's start off with the defending champs versus the runner-ups. Whipsnakes right now are the favorites. But the Redwoods, they have 1.5 point handicap. So that's not too large of a margin. But do you think the Redwoods cover or even win outright? Or do you think this is a good bet to put on the Whipsnakes?
Yeah, based off of their two matchups last year, I think I'm taking the Redwoods in this one. Not necessarily outright, but to cover. And I'm excited to see this matchup. I think in terms of the over-under, I'm going to go surprisingly with the under on this one. Even though they have really two strong offenses, I think those defenses hold up, and I'll take the under in this one.
Yeah, and you mentioned too that you think the Redwoods will cover. I agree. I think they cover. I think they could win outright. Last year, they had that blowout loss to the Whipsnakes, which kind of skews the data a little bit. But last year, the Whipsnakes averaged 13.3 points against the Redwoods, and the Redwoods averaged 9.7 points against the Whipsnakes. I think I'd take the under as well. I think it's going to be a really strong defensive battle. Losing Tim Muller might hurt the Whipsnakes a little bit, but I think the Redwoods losing Jules might hurt their offense a little bit too. So I think these teams balance. I think these teams are well balanced. I think it's going to be a tough, grinded out matchup. And if I was, going to place a bet on this, I would take the under, and I would take the Redwoods covering. So again, these lines are kind of tight though. Only 1.5 points. It goes to show that there's really not any true underdogs in the PLL. Even the underdogs are only an underdog by 1.5 points. So that brings us to our next game of the weekend, which is the Chaos versus the Chrome. Chaos are 1.5 point favorites, but we talked about how we like the Chrome a lot. Do you think the Chrome cover?
Yeah, I really like this Chrome squad in this matchup. I absolutely think they cover in this one. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I'm going to take the under on this one too, just because of the goalie play. But I think Chrome do cover, and I'll take the under.
All right, I'm going to take the Chrome to cover as well. And I think they probably will win outright as well too. Again, these lines are kind of tight. So, yeah, I'm picking Chrome. I'm actually going over because last year the Chrome beat them. We only have 2 games to go off of, but the Chrome beat the Chaos 19-14, and the Chaos beat Chrome 15-14. Those are some high-scoring affairs. Obviously when they set these over-unders, they probably were using that data, taking that into consideration. But 29.5, I think these teams got even better on the offensive side. Again, their defenses, are probably their Achilles heel right now. I think the Chrome probably look a little bit better on the defensive side. Chaos are no slouch either, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I'm taking the over on this one. I think these two offenses are going to have a field day. And then finally, we have the Water Dogs versus the Atlas. The Water Dogs are the underdogs by 1.5 point. The over-under right now is set at 28.5. Adam, do you like the Water Dogs to cover? And then where do you stand on this over-under?
Yeah, I know. I picked the Water Dogs in the championship, but from a betting man, I think the Atlas take this initial game coming out of the chute. And I think I don't see this one being a shootout as much as you would think. I'm going to take the under. I think that may be something that you see from me a good bit when we're making these choices throughout this. I think it's probably going to be the under a lot of the time. You only saw 6 games. As Dan Arestia, one of our contributors, mentioned in his Pro Bets take, you only saw 6 games break the 30-goal mark last year. And I think that's going to be a trend we probably see this year as well.
All right, I'm going to go different for my pick to win. I think the Water Dogs are going to cover. I don't know if they're going to win. I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think it's going to be a one-score game. So that's why I like the Water Dogs to cover the point spread. And I'm going under as well. These two teams, again, have a solid offense. You got Rob Pennell on one end, Zach Currier on the other. But I don't see them, going above 28.5 points. I think it'll probably be closer to the 25, 26 point range. So I'm taking the under as well. But I do like the Water Dogs to cover in this one. So those are our picks for the over-unders as well as the point spread. Again, we already mentioned the future odds. You guys can listen to past podcasts on our thoughts on that. But I did place a bet on the Archers and the Water Dogs. Adam placed one on the Water Dogs. So check out those odds because I think that's where you have a lot of potential to make a lot of money there. And there's only 7 teams, so you have a 1 in 7 chance of being right when you don't even weigh just a 1 in 7 chance of being right, even if you don't weigh how these teams are looking going into the series. But that is our betting coverage of the PLL Championship Series. We're really excited that they are introducing betting. Their deal with DraftKings, I think, is huge for the sport. It's going to attract an entirely new audience that may have not been interested in the sport beforehand. And we're just excited to get going. We're excited to cover the games for you and excited to, talk some Premier Lacrosse League this next 2 weeks. So with that wraps up our PLL Championship Series preview. We hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we hope you tune in next time to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
Today, I also want to talk to you about Design Tree. On our Design Tree store, we have several t-shirt designs like the Pro Lacrosse Talk tee I'm wearing today, our Blast Lacrosse shirt, Crosses Medicine shirt, and many more designs on the way. Design Tree is also home to hundreds of other t-shirt designs in the realm of sports and pop culture. To help support the podcast, please consider checking out our Design Tree store at dsgntree.com/pro-lacrosse-talk and grab a shirt today.